For sure, it's about to turn up. A Dro City member was the other person shot with Wu. Multiple hoods going to be involved in this coming war between THF 46 and Dro City TYMB. TYMB is the set which is nothing to play with. This set is full of killers. Things are clearly about to heat up. TYMB is not a group that gets taken lightly. They've built a reputation over time and are known for how dangerous they can be. Yeah, TYMB, since it's a high-wide both sides movement, and THF 44, THF 46, been dissing both Young Moneys, always talking about die wide both sides. Also, BNC 064's Pac-Man and Mubu Crump's gang, they loved Melly and Wu, and even repped 0512 and would bring Melly through Dro City, so they gonna slide. And if Zoo really get Crump and Kurt Mack, them BNC 064's still gonna get some get back, cause ain't no time limit for revenge. And they are a set known for real killers, and are capable of getting they get back if they want to. Also, the younger generation, for both BNC 064's TYMB, them TPG, Tyree Pike guys, can also do the sliding, since they the YNs of Dro City from headquarters 6th and Ellis. This beef with THF and 051 this time will be way worse than the 50 Strong and Folly Boys beef. I'm so Young Money, I'd still rather shoot up at the 6, TA46, TYMB Money Man on that talk. He fasho loved Wu, and he still hates THF 46. He actually refers the oga shit they did it to Wu of 051. So who knows, they might. Dro City made up of 5 blocks, one of them to be Tim, and they got hella shorties. They just not online, saying they got 14 bodies flexing guns, switches like other shorties. Dro City TMB and Wu BD family is pissed about his death. 051 might not even have to do much, even though they will. Melly, Wu, and Dro City and TYMB and them guys had very tight connection. You remember before Melly and Mubu passed, Mubu had so much love for Melly, they did Chino Burger videos taunt the rival deceit.
We at my favorite spot, y'all. I just ordered my food. Hey, y'all got that order for Nooski? Chino Burger. Chino Burger. Yeah. Y'all got it? Hey, right? Oh, thank you. Oh, Bill, what's up? Y'all with that OTLK shit? Oh, man. Hey, this bogus as hell, man. Y'all, this shit ain't done, man. Y'all done put this shit back on the grill, man. This shit disgusting, man. Get this shit together, man. For real, this shit bogus as hell, man. Straight up, man. That shit nasty as hell.
Mubu brought 051 Melly to Dro City and introduced him in a house full of killers in Dro City territory. Mubu Crumpo always refer 051 Melly as a demon. It was on Zack Stoner channel, the owner of Zack TV YouTube channel. Anyway, enough for the trailer. Like I always say, I never want to waste your time. Here the story begins. It all begins since the death of Wu, and 051 Melly's death put salts on TYMB wounds. TYMB, Cortez, and Courtney are cousins of Wu and Melly. So in this episode, we're going to take an in-depth look at a group widely known by several names, most commonly TYMB, which stands for TY You're My Brother, and how their affiliations and family connections with 051YM will cause whole big war in the city of Chicago again. TYMB is a set of black disciples whose main block is 65th in Maryland. They have been active since at least the 1990s and are a pretty deep set. Some other names they go by are Obama World, Kesey Clan, YMB, 064, and 065. TYMB main block is 65th in Maryland. However, their territory spans from 63rd to 66th, Cottage Grove to Drexel. Being a part of the Dro City gang area, TYMB's exact territory ranges from 63rd to 66th, Cottage Grove to Drexel. Some other blocks they post on include but are not limited to 64th in Maryland, 65th in Cottage, 65th in Drexel. Over the years, the name has also been associated with TYMB and what many people refer to as Obama World. This isn't just a single set, it represents a deep-rooted collective with history, loyalty, and influence that stretches back years. TYMB is made up primarily of BDs, GDs, and Stones, all of whom trace their origins to 65th in Maryland, located in an area known as Dro City, on the south side of Chicago. Dro City isn't just one block or one crew. It's an entire zone made up of multiple cliques that were once united under one banner and one name. Dro City itself is composed of roughly 5 different cliques, all of which were aligned at one point in time. That alignment wasn't accidental. It was built in honor and respect of a well-known individual who went by the name Dro, also known as Sajo. Before Dro's passing, the area was commonly referred to by names like Murder Town and Ghost Time, labels that reflected the reputation and environment of the neighborhood during that era. TYMB has been around since the late 2000s, early 2010s, but the set itself has been around since at least the 90s, and the BDs in the area originally came from a few different places, such as torn down projects and other BD neighborhoods, Braindead for example. Within Dro City, several cliques operated side by side. You had Young Money Boys, also known as YMB, which would later evolve into what we now know as TYMB. Alongside them were groups such as Saw Block, Snow Block, and The Creek. During this period, these cliques were not only aligned with one another, but also maintained cordial relationships with nearby crews, including Trap City. At the time, much of Dro City was known for being Die 5 crazy, largely because it was believed that Stones from Cranktown were responsible for Dro's death. Despite that, the area still functioned as a unified force for a period of time. From the outside looking in, people might try to separate these groups, but within the city, it was understood that they were all part of the same foundation, at least initially. However, as time went on, things began to change. Relationships that were once solid started to fracture. Lives were lost, tensions escalated, and what began as small disagreements or personal issues eventually turned into full-blown conflicts. These internal and external pressures caused certain cliques and individuals to drift apart, choosing different paths as alliances shifted and wars ignited. Even with all of that, Dro City stands as a pillar in the Chicago drill scene. Many people don't realize this, but Dro City is actually credited with helping give drill music its name and identity. The influence of this area runs deep in the culture. One of Dro City's most respected figures was Pac-Man, often regarded as one of the area's finest representatives. Pac-Man was not only respected, but genuinely loved by many within Dro City. It's rare to hear anyone speak negatively about him, and regardless of ongoing conflicts or rivalries, people across different sides still show him love and respect. Another major name connected to Dro City is King Louie, a key figure who had a massive influence on the drill movement as a whole. His impact reached far beyond the neighborhood, helping shape the sound and direction of Chicago drill music on a larger scale. On 65th in Maryland, the Young Money Boys, YMB, originally formed. Their name came from their heavy admiration for Lil Wayne, whose music they constantly listened to and drew inspiration from. At the time, Wayne's influence was at its peak, and YMB embodied that energy. As time went on, YMB quickly became a force to be reckoned with. The name began to ring bells throughout Chicago, and not just because of music or reputation, but also because of the blood ties they shared with some of the most dangerous and well-known sets in the city. Those connections played a major role in how seriously YMB was taken on the streets. One individual in particular stood out above the rest, TY, short for Tyshawn. TY was widely regarded as one of the most loved, if not the most loved, members of YMB during that era. His presence alone carried weight. TY was known for having a massive family, both by blood and by bond. He was naturally charismatic, the type of person people gravitated toward. Even today, there are many people who refuse to diss TY out of respect. His name holds a certain level of untouchable status. It was in honor of TY that the crew from 65th in Maryland eventually chose to rename themselves TYMB, TY You're My Brother. Though TY himself was from 64th in Maryland, his influence extended far beyond just one block. TY had numerous brothers and close associates, including Squads, Kells, Law, Face, BG, Moneyman, and Kirkball, who sadly passed away recently. The twins, Courtney and Cortez, are also connected through family ties, as they are brothers of one of TY's brothers. Additionally, TY was the cousin of Melly and Wu, further strengthening the deep web of relationships tied to his name. All of these connections, stories, and losses come together to explain why TYMB isn't just a name. It's a legacy rooted in loyalty, brotherhood, influence, and history that still echoes through Chicago today. On May 21st, 2009, a date that would forever be etched into the history of Chicago's South Side, TY lost his life to gun violence. His death did not occur in isolation. It became a defining moment that shifted the balance of power, loyalty, and conflict across multiple neighborhoods. What happened that night would go on to spark one of the most talked about, most documented, and most violent street wars the South Side of Chicago had ever experienced. TY was not just another name. He was YMB's very first fallen member, their first true loss, and the emotional impact of that cannot be overstated. Until that moment, many within the group may have believed they were prepared for anything, but losing TY stripped away any illusions. It forced everyone involved to confront how real the streets truly were. His death transformed grief into anger, and anger into action. The pain of losing TY spread rapidly through Dro City and beyond. His name echoed through blocks, conversations, and retaliatory plans. For YMB, this was no longer about reputation. It was about loss, honor, and survival. Later, law enforcement announced that 2 individuals had been charged in connection with the May 21st shooting. Those individuals were Quinn Glover, who was just 17 years old at the time and lived on the 1400 block of West 73rd Street, and Central Lanier, age 22, from the 6200 block of South Tallman Avenue. Both were charged in the fatal shooting of Edgar Walker, another tragic casualty of the same night. Walker was attacked in the 6500 block of South Evans Avenue, located in the West Woodlawn neighborhood, just before 10 p.m. He was struck by multiple gunshot wounds, collapsing at the scene. Emergency responders rushed him to Northwestern Memorial Hospital, but despite medical efforts, he was pronounced dead at 10:20 p.m. Chicago police stated that the shooting appeared to be gang-related, though they refrained from releasing further details. In the immediate aftermath, investigators said they were searching for at least 2 offenders, described as men or possibly juveniles. Authorities confirmed that at least one shooter fired directly at Walker. Glover and Lanier were scheduled to appear in bond court shortly after their arrest, though court records were limited at the time. What was known, however, was that Central Lanier was already serving a 3-year sentence in state prison for unlawful possession of a weapon by a felon. Another individual, Roger Brown, also known on the streets as BG, was being held without bail at the Cook County Jail. At the time of Walker's killing, Brown was already on probation for selling or possessing stolen goods, adding another layer to the legal fallout surrounding the case. But the violence did not end there. Just 1 hour after TY was killed, at approximately 11:20 p.m., another shooting erupted only a short distance away. In a separate drive-by attack, 3 men were wounded outside of a residence on South St. Lawrence Avenue. According to police reports, all 3 victims were expected to survive, but the message had already been sent. 2 of the victims, a 28-year-old man shot in the stomach and a 22-year-old man shot in the lower back, were transported to Northwestern Memorial Hospital. A 3rd victim, a 34-year-old man, suffered a grazing wound to his left arm and was taken to St. Bernard Hospital. Witnesses told police that the shooter fired 8 rounds from the back seat of a white, 4-door Oldsmobile, which sped away from the scene immediately after the shots rang out. Despite the seriousness of the attack, no arrests were ever made in that case. TY's murder, however, would not fade into obscurity. In his case, 3 individuals were initially taken into custody, and 2 would ultimately be convicted. Roger B.G. Brown received the most severe punishment, a 26-year prison sentence for TY's murder. Quinn Chicken Glover, due to being only 17 years old at the time of the crime, was sentenced to 20 years. Years later, legal developments led to his release roughly 2 years ago, and the charges against him were eventually dropped. Another suspect, Taki, also saw his charges dismissed, not because of innocence, but because he had already been charged with 3 separate murders in Indiana. Authorities determined that regardless of the outcome of TY's case, Taki was effectively facing life behind bars. In the aftermath of TY's death, YMB underwent a transformation. As a sign of respect and remembrance, they added a T to their name, becoming TYMB, meaning TY, you're my brother. Some interpreted it as TYMB, others as Ty, you my brother, and some referred to the group as the Tyshawn Money Boys. Regardless of the wording, the meaning was clear. TY's name would live on forever. This marked the beginning of a new era in the streets. TYMB made it known that they were no longer willing to move cautiously or follow unwritten rules. The loss of TY hardened them, reshaping their identity and their approach. Then, in September 2010, tragedy struck again. TYMB lost another close member, a young man known as Little Chris. Chris had strong ties to TYMB, but was also affiliated with Trap City, also known as Zone 7. His death sent shockwaves through both crews. He was allegedly killed by STL, a group considered enemies to both TYMB and Zone 7. To honor him, T adopted the name Chris Wade, while Trap City renamed themselves Chris World. His loss further deepened the already growing list of fallen names fueling the conflict. The war escalated dramatically on January 12, 2011, when Shondell Tuka Gregory was shot and killed at a bus stop on 63rd and St. Lawrence. That corner would later become known globally as Tukaville. Tuka's killing was widely believed to be retaliation for TY's death, and it intensified the war to an entirely new level. From that moment on, the South Side became a battleground. Neutrality disappeared. Blocs chose sides, alliances hardened, the violence escalated, and the cycle of retaliation spun faster. Just days after Tuka's death, TYMB released their first song, titled Don't Get Caught Lacking. The song was raw, aggressive, and unapologetic, reflecting the anger, pain, and reality of the streets. Months later, they followed up with their first official music video, Drilling Time. Around this time, Obama, another respected and beloved TYMB member, made a pivotal decision. Watching others gain notoriety and success through music, he believed TYMB could do the same. His mindset was simple. If everyone else can do it, why can't we? Obama was more than just a rapper. He was seen as a leader, a voice, and a figure of influence within the community. Tragically, in 2012, Obama was killed, allegedly by Kenny Mack from Zone 7. But as had become all too common, the violence did not stop there. Kenny Mack would soon meet the same fate, reinforcing the harsh truth of the streets. Retaliation never ends. It only continues. By this point, TYMB's name had become inseparable from the history of Chicago drill, street warfare, and loss. What began with the death of TY had evolved into a full-scale conflict that reshaped neighborhoods, music, and lives, leaving behind a legacy defined by brotherhood, pain, and an unending cycle of violence. TMB have many allies. Some of their allies are 6 Block Risk Takers, Snow Block Mubu, 051 YM Melliway. TMB have multiple ops which are CL Tukaville. Do you remember that video Boss Strell and FBG Young and FBG Dutchie went to the corner of TYMB and dissing them? It is old video at the beginning of the war.
Ain't this Young Money? What Young Money at? What's this?
He ain't about this action, man. He is out here, man. Standing on y'all corner, man.
TYMB. TY, man. GDN. TYMB. Man, they some hoes, man. College Grove.
Back towards the land.
Man, back towards the S, man.
Back towards the S, man. We got
Niggas be at, man.
Chris world, we on feet. We ain't no
Boss Trail, man.
On G, man.
We out here, man.
Other ops are EBT Tuckerville, Dro City ABM, O Block, Wick City, CWBS 066, Zale World, Trap City, Mix Mob, Mexico City, Drill City, Rugerville, 800 Pireway, The Creek MCBW, Saw Block Row Life, 61530 Gang, Cranktown YCF, Stony Spot BGE, Lawless Booney Boys, Lamron 300, 400 ELA Gang. The deep lessons we can learn from TYMB Woo, Melly, and Dro City. The stories of TYMB Woo, Melly, Pac-Man, Obama, Little Chris, Tuka, and the wider Dro City network are not just isolated street narratives. They represent a long chain of interconnected lives, family ties, alliances, rivalries, and losses that shaped entire neighborhoods on Chicago's South Side. These were not strangers colliding randomly. These were cousins, brothers, childhood friends, and longtime associates whose lives overlapped long before the violence defined them. Understanding these stories requires stepping back from rumors, scoreboards, and online commentary, and instead recognizing how grief, loyalty, identity, and environment combined to create cycles that became almost impossible to stop. How one death changed everything, the impact of TY. TY Tyshawn was not just another member of Young Money Boys. He was one of the most loved and respected figures in Dro City. His personality, family connections, and ability to unite people gave him a status that many others never reached. Even years later, many people still refuse to diss his name out of respect. When TY was killed on May 21, 2009, the loss hit deeper than most street deaths. He was the first fallen member of YMB, a central figure holding people together, a family bridge between multiple sets, including ties to 051 Melly and Woo. His death didn't simply create sadness, it created direction. Grief hardened into anger, and anger turned into action. YMB adding the T and becoming TYMB TY You're My Brother symbolized love, but it also permanently locked TY's death into their identity. Lesson: when a highly respected figure is lost, the emotional vacuum left behind can redirect an entire group's future, often toward destruction. Grief without healing turns into violence. After TY's death, there was no space for healing. There were no tools available for young men in Dro City to process loss in a healthy way. Crying, stepping back, or choosing peace were all seen as weakness. Instead, pain was absorbed silently and then released violently. This same pattern repeated after. Little Chris was killed. Obama was killed. Woo was killed. 051 Melly was killed. Each loss stacked on top of the last, creating emotional overload. By the time Woo and Melly were gone, the grief wasn't just personal, it was historical. Old wounds reopened and new ones were added before the old ones ever healed. Lesson: when grief is ignored or suppressed, it does not disappear. It mutates into rage and revenge. Loyalty as a strength and a trap. Loyalty is the foundation of TYMB and Dro City. The phrase, "You're my brother," was not symbolic, it was lived. Members protected each other, stood together, and treated one another like family, especially in environments where real family structures were often fractured. However, loyalty eventually became conditional on violence. Being loyal no longer meant keeping your brother alive, it meant being willing to die or kill for him. That shift turned loyalty from a shield into a cage. Individuals like Woo and Melly were deeply loved, and that love is exactly why their deaths carried such dangerous consequences. Their loss did not lead to reflection, it demanded retaliation. Lesson: loyalty without boundaries can force people to make irreversible choices in the name of love. Family ties made the conflict deeper and more personal. One of the most overlooked aspects of this entire history is how deeply family relationships were embedded in the street structure. TY, Woo, and Melly were not just allies, they were blood relatives. Figures like Courtney and Cortez were tied in through family lines as well. Because of this, violence didn't just affect sets, It tore through families. Mothers, siblings, cousins, and children all carried the weight of losses that were both personal and public. Every new death felt like reopening a family wound that never closed. Lesson: when street conflicts overlap with blood relations, the pain becomes generational rather than situational. The illusion of get back and endless retaliation. Revenge has no expiration date in street culture. The belief that get back restores balance is one of the most destructive ideas in this entire history. Every act of retaliation created a new enemy, a new grieving family, a new reason for future violence. The deaths of Tuka, Obama, Kenny Mack, and others show how retaliation rarely targets only the guilty. It expands outward, pulling in people who were never directly involved in the original conflict. Lesson: revenge does not end cycles, it extends them. The younger generation inherited trauma, not truth. As years passed, younger members, often called the shorties or YNs, stepped into a war they did not start. They learned about TY, Tuka, Wu, and Melly through stories, music, and social media rather than lived experience. What they inherited was anger without context, loyalty without choice, trauma without explanation. They were expected to uphold reputations and beefs that were formed long before they were old enough to understand them. Lesson: when trauma is passed down instead of healed, it becomes tradition rather than tragedy. Drill music preserved pain forever. Drill music played a major role in cementing these conflicts. Artists connected to Dro City, TYMB, STL, and other sets used music to express pain, pride, and loss. While this gave voices to the unheard, it also locked beefs into public record. Once disses were recorded and shared, forgiveness became nearly impossible without appearing weak. Music turned moments of grief into permanent statements. Lesson: when pain becomes music, it can heal, but it can also trap people inside the moment forever. Respect did not protect anyone. Despite their influence and respect, TY was killed, Pac-Man was killed, Obama was killed, Wu was killed, Melly was killed. Respect did not stop bullets, prison sentences, or funerals. The streets honored these men after death far more than they protected them while alive. Lesson: street respect is loud at funerals but silent when danger arrives. The justice system always has the last word. While sets focused on wars, law enforcement quietly built cases. People like Roger B.G. Brown and Quinn Glover became examples of how consequences eventually arrive, regardless of street status. Entire crews weakened over time as members were killed, incarcerated, or forced into hiding. The neighborhoods, however, remained damaged. Lesson: the streets move fast, but the system waits patiently, and it rarely loses. My final thought: the story of TY, TYMB, Wu, Melly, Dro City, and everyone connected to them is not a story about evil people. It is a story about unresolved grief, misplaced loyalty, and environments that offered survival but not healing. What started as brotherhood slowly transformed into obligation. What began as love hardened into expectation. And what was meant to honor the fallen often guaranteed that more would fall. The biggest lesson is not about who was right or wrong. The biggest lesson is this: pain that is never processed will always demand payment, usually from the next generation. If these stories are remembered only as street legends, then the cycle continues. But if they are understood as warnings, then maybe their losses can mean something beyond more funerals.